Hi, this is discussion number 3. Question number 1. Does your culture value a particular style of persuasion? Do your own preferred ways of persuading others reflect your culture's style of persuasion? Cultures differ in ways people prefer to arrange their evidence, assumptions, and claims, which constitute culture's persuasion styles. It is an important cultural attribute that is taken for granted within a culture but affects communication between cultures. In the book, there are 3 general strategies that are described: the quasi-logical, presentational, and analogical. I was mainly raised by my grandmother, who practiced old school cultural behaviors. Thus, to me, Ukrainian culture is a high context culture, though it does fall under the European spectrum of cultures which are considered low context. Growing up, I have learned that Ukrainian culture values all 3 persuasive styles depending on the audience, physical and relational settings. This is so because within the last 30 years, Ukraine has moved toward being a low context culture as we're opening our borders and are experiencing diversity from west and east. Thus, for example, presentational and analogical styles will be used within family and close friend settings, as well as amongst neighbors, and by teachers at school or by priests at church. These settings are not considered formal, and the use of presentational and analogical persuasions, which are more complex and which depend on certain understanding between the speaker and the audience, are appropriate. In settings such as business developments or any other work environments that are very formal, the speaker usually uses the quasi-logical persuasion style to make sure that the ideas or the points of views are as clear as possible, because these settings are much more diverse and require more precise explanations without any omissions which may lead to future conflicts between communicating parties. I believe my persuasion styles do reflect Ukrainian culture's persuasion styles, though I do realize most of the time that I learn and adapt to new venues of communication and persuasion styles. I found a cultural connection which talks about Native American people hesitating to tell anyone directly what they should do to be interesting in a way that this is the approach my grandmother used while raising me, which I hope to adopt and use constructively while raising my child. Question number 2. What does silence communicate to you? How is your culture how is your culture's use of silence connected to Hall's cultural pattern of high and low context? Once again, depending on who I'm communicating with, silence may mean different things. For example, when I went back home to visit my grandmama, once we got to the house, we put on some tea and we sat in silence. This silence meant that we are expressing how much has happened and how much we missed each other through the years of being apart. This is a display of high context cultural pattern on the because um, it is understood by this setting, the tea, the grandmother and the granddaughter relationships. There's a lot of things that are already understood and don't need to be communicated. On the contrary, in the communication with my boss at work, silence simply means we need to gather our thoughts and brainstorm the ideas that will help us to resolve issues that have arisen. Cultural connection about Bengali woman not saying her husband's name because it is something intimate and therefore unspoken correlates with the silence communication, which is a display of respect and it is part of a high context cultural patterns display in Hindi cultures. Members of some question number 3. Members of some cultures will invariably say yes, even though, given the situation and their true feelings, the answer is most likely no. Why do you think they do this? What purpose might it serve, given what we've learned about different cultures' assumptions and values frameworks? I think people do that in order to avoid the face-on conflicts People also may do this to avoid certain social and cultural pressures through um, displaying their responsibilities to the society. The purpose of this is to achieve and maintain harmonious relationships um, within the society. It also helps promote the world peace where no one needs to be governed or to be governed. I find cultural connection from chapter 5 applicable as it talks about Southeast Asian refugees who were not comfortable with American public relations approach and views. A man says that he is reluctant to do the interview, but he will do it as his duty. He's saying yes, but he really means no, as he just simply does not feel that that's what he needs to do, and his cultural behavior does not allow him really to do that on subconscious level. I think that's it. Thank you for listening, and I'll talk to you later.